अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः, भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः, स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो विद्युषभाः, स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः, स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः, स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सहना भवतु, सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यं करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we will take up the Mandukya Upanishad mantra number 4, and we may even complete it today. So let's chant it first, and then we'll pick up the thread from last week, from last class. Swapnasthano antah pragyaha saptangaha ekona vimshati mukhaha pravivikta bhuktajaso dvitiya padaha. Dvitiya padaha. So this is the second step for me to gain Swarajya. Swarajya means that I am my own boss. That's what Swarajya means. Means right now I'm not my own boss. I am bossed by the world. All the various things that demand things from me, and I act like a beggar, just getting some things from here and there, somehow making my happiness be okay for the time being, but then it just continues on. So I'm very dependent. This is Pararajya. But the Swarajya means the one I am totally independent, which is my reality, and I have to see that. So for us to gain that, the second step, which is the Sukshma Sharira Vichara. This is really Sukshma Sharira Vichara. Vichara is the main thing that we have to do. Why? Because I have made I made a mistake about evaluating who I am, concluding who I am. And so the things that are really me, I take them to be other than me. And once I understand that, then it is it's a totally different thing altogether. My attitude changes. There was Swami Maheshananda ji, I think, had given this very beautiful example, a real life example, really. So it appears that there was a trader, a person who leaves the home for seeking business. And so he left his home, and he had a son who was a toddler at that time, 1 or 2 years old. But he left the home to seek some business somewhere at a different part of the country. And he was so involved in that business that he could never even go home. His wife was raising the children, and he never even saw them. In those days, there was not FaceTime or anything like that. There was only communication with letters. Anyway, so the story is that this man left home and was there for like 20 years, 18, 20 years. And then finally he decided I have to go home and check on my whole family, what's happening. My children must have grown up. So he came back towards the home. On the way, he stayed in a hotel, kind of like a motel, not a very elaborate one, just a small motel kind of like a thing. And when he was staying there, there was a sound of a person not well, coughing a lot, so much so that it ended up disturbing him. And he was really unhappy about it, saying, well, I just wanted to get some rest. And how is it that other people are really bothering me? And he was complaining it to the innkeeper, saying, there's no insulation between rooms and I could hardly sleep and so on. So anyways, getting ready to go out, and this other person also was leaving. And he apologized. He says, I must have kept you awake during the night. He says, I know I was disturbed, but it's okay. It's all right. So they started to talk. And he says, who are you? Where are you going? So this person said, I am going to Calcutta to seek out my father who has been lost for 20 years. And pretty soon he recognized, oh my goodness, this is my own son. And from that point on, he said, you are not well. Let me take care of you. His whole attitude changed completely. It was no longer a stranger. It was his own son. So everything is really in the mind, how you look at things. And so this fourth mantra, this Saptangaha Eko Vimshati Mukhaha Taijasaha Dvitiya Padaha is very significant. I tell you, this is even much more significant than the first one. And why? Because as the explanation of the Mandukya Upanishad and the Karika will detail, our whole problem in life is how I look at my thoughts. It will be a remarkable journey, honestly. It has helped me a lot, and I would love to relive it with you in terms of the instructions, of showing the vision of how I make a mistake. I make a mistake about not knowing. This is a mistake. So just like in the case of this man, he was seeing the same person, with the same amount of illness that was bothering him was no longer a problem because he could say, my God, this is my own son. Similarly, it will happen, hopefully, for all of us, that we will look upon the world as something which is my own glory. And this I have to understand, because I don't understand that. I have a mistake. So the promise of Vedanta, as we saw in the ending of the last class, is not, it's all about samskaras, all about thoughts. And the question is, how do I change my samskaras to make things better? So we went into this very quick analysis that for those who are karmakandins, who believe in karma, they feel that if you keep on doing better karmas, more dharmic karmas, more puja, more yajna, and so somehow my samskaras would get refined, and there will become a point where I will seek Ishvara in whatever heaven or somewhere, and this is how my improvement goes. So this is their thesis, that you improve your karmas. Then there's the people uh, who are upasakas. So they are prayerful people. And what they say is, don't do karmas. You don't have to do helping others and this, that, or the other, but just change the nature of your thoughts by bhakti, by being prayerful towards God. Just recognize the presence of God. Know that everything else is nothing but a manifestation of God. That's all you need to do. There, it said, you don't need to change the karma. You can change the samskara itself by refining it. And then, of course, eventually the same thing is, this is all something which will come later. It's not now, but if you keep on working, at some point in time, you will reach Ishvara. This is their thesis. And the last one, so these three are taken up by Swami Akhandananda as a way for us to understand and to distinguish the sampradaya of Advaita Vedanta. And so sometimes you have to distinguish where the changes are. You know, it's like for a person that doesn't know any shades of red, but for a person who's shown different shades of red, one which may be more crimson, one which may have some violet mixed with it. You know, even this, I have a red car, this Mustang Mach-E. So I decided to get a red one. And the funny thing is, when I brought it home, none of the family members, including my wife particularly, was very happy about it. She says, a red car? You know, you're going to be caught by the highway patrolman more often. And what are you doing? I said, I don't know. It's just something that I like. Instead of a boring gray and black or white, I just decided I'm going to get a red car. So, so she kind of accepted it. Then something funny happened. You won't believe this. She started to appreciate it. You know, sometimes that's what happens. So the first time you see something, you say, what? What is this? Then you more think about it and it grows on you. You won't believe what happened. So, her old car the lease had run out and we were going to get a new car for her. And for the last 15 years, she only gets black color cars. Because she has some clients that all have black color cars, and that is the classy thing to do. So she was always getting black cars, black cars, black cars. So one day I got a very good deal from the dealer and my wife wasn't even there. In fact, I think at one time I'd shown it to her. She says, yeah, I would like to get a black car. So I ordered a black car. When I brought it home, do you know what happened? She said, I like your red car better. I think I'm going to drive yours. That is amazing. What a transformation. Anyway, back to the story. So what happened is that now each one of us is very aware of, particularly Tesla. So Tesla also has a red color. And my car's red color is slightly different from Tesla's red color. So now we become an expert in red. Before that, it was all red, only red, red, red. But now we can distinguish between them. And so this is exactly what needs to be done. And sometimes, if you simply talk about Advaita Vedanta without contrasting it with other ways of looking at it, you lose the shades of subtlety that might have been missed if you didn't have some alternatives to look at. So this is an important thing because when we also, this happened when I was studying with Swami Dayanand at the PRC ashram, he used to sell exactly the same thing. He said, you know, our study of Buddhism, Jainism, Sankhya, all these schools of thought, Purva Mimamsa, ours is Uttara Mimamsa, all those kinds of things, it is not for us to criticize them, but to understand how their answers don't quite measure up to ours by contrasting our own ideas with them. This is exactly the same point. This is where we ended the last class. So now we go ahead and so the question is, so yeah, that one more to go, yoga. Yeah, we didn't finish that. We went to dharma, which is karma. And, you know, because dharma and karma are sometimes interchangeable. In Gita also, sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja aham twas sarva papebhyaha moksha ishyami ma shuchaha. So this is in the 18th chapter, I think, verse number 63, the ending of the teaching. So there he says sarva dharman. So the sarva dharman means sarva karma. Anyway, the first one is karma, the second one is upasana, and the third one is yoga. The yoga system says, no, you are both not doing the right thing. Either you cannot keep on waiting for karmas to exhaust, you cannot keep on doing the upasana. What you need to do is to empty your mind from everything. Just empty it. And there is a process involved that you just do yama, niyama, etc., ashtanga yoga, and then we come close to savikalpa samadhi. And then we leave savikalpa samadhi and we go into nirvikalpa samadhi. And if you come out of nirvikalpa samadhi, doesn't matter, but try to practice Nirvikalpa Samadhi again and again. So this is what is called the Abhyasa Marga. Yoga system sometimes is called Abhyasa Marga. Abhyasa Marga means the path of practicing. Practicing. I think I was telling you this, that there is a friend of ours, younger person, and he goes to Hyderabad and they have a meditation session with 40,000 people. And he goes there every year, just came recently. He was there for 2 weeks. And one time he explained to me what a wonderful thing it is. Everybody meditates together over a long period of time. And I get the sense, I'm not sure that I have completely. He doesn't ask me about Vedanta. He says it's some mumbo jumbo he's doing. I have no idea. Just come to us and do meditation. But I get the feeling it is repeated abhyasa. Anyway, so the yogic system is that by practicing, you stay in nirvikalpa samadhi. I think this is exactly what my idea is, and I think it is close to it. That maybe the first time you do Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it may be for half hour. But then you keep practicing it for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. And then pretty soon, you have complete control over Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Even if you come out for a while, it's okay. You could go back to it very quickly. Empty the mind from all thoughts. Then you will reach yourself and you will discover yourself. So our acharyas say, no. This is foolishness because you have not given up the conclusion that I am a limited person. Because even when you're doing Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you will see the Nirvikalpa Samadhi a as a state, and so we will go into this in more detail. State meaning that you are there for a while. Who is there for a while? Who is it that comes out? Have you inquired into that? If not, then your original ideas that I am just a limited being who is doing Nirvikalpa Samadhi stays. And in fact, the Vedanta says that really you don't need to do Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The deep sleep itself is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But do you get any benefit out of it? You went into like a foolish person going to sleep. When you come out, you're still a foolish person. Nothing has happened. Therefore, Advaita Vedanta says, my dear, there is a mistake. You take something and you miss it. It's a mistake. And you need to understand what that is. And until you do, you are just trying some shortcuts. These shortcuts don't work. You're just doing some, not really shortcuts in that sense, but more like symptom hunting. Your symptomology. You're not looking for disease itself. And so, therefore, the Vedanta says that you have to, and how do I correct the mistake? Vichara. I have some conclusions and I have to examine them, where I'm making a mistake. And then once I understand that the whole thing is really nothing but my own self, just like a dream, your ball game is over. Then you are free, whether there is thoughts, no thoughts, karma, upasana, whatever it is, you are free. Swarajya. So this is what Vedanta says. So to contrast it with others is good. We have to see where these issues are. And we'll go into this in more detail later on. I'm just giving you an introduction. So now a brief introduction to who you are. Just a very short introduction. So we look at who you are not, but here it is who you are. It's a brief introduction, and then we'll go back and forth. So, what the teaching says is, my dear, you are ekam advitiyam purnam anadi. So here there's a distinction between ekam and advitiyam. Ekam and advitiyam. There's a huge difference between one. It'll be beautiful. Swami Kandanala does a great job of making that distinction. What is Advayam? Advaya Vedanta. What does that mean? So all that we will study very clearly. So anyway, the thesis of Vedanta is that you are making a mistake because you are segmenting aham and idam. And in the beginning, by doing this viveka, it is good. In the beginning, in the ajnana, there was no distinction between aham and idam. Then you became a little bit more educated, and you found that you were Me, I am the Sakshi, Aham. And I am looking at everything, which is the Sakshya. And so that is Idam. That's good. Wow, now I am educated. It's like going to high school and you got some introduction to physics. At first you didn't know anything about physics, but now you're a high school student who says, I know about physics. There are two aspects to living. One is aham, one is idam. You see, you didn't know this. You can walk up to somebody and say, did you know this? And he said, no, I didn't know that. He said, see, this is something I found out. But this is not the final stage. So then it says, ekam advitiyam. There is no aham, there is no idam. It is all the same jnanam, vijnanam. And the vijnanam has the bifurcation into aham and idam. And both of them are nothing but prajnanam. Bahish prajnanam, antah prajnanam. Just like in a dream, the single jnanam gets bifurcated into the dreamer and the dreamt. But none of them are really the true self. They are nothing but a bifurcation of the same thing. This is through the Maya Shakti. And so really, the aham is purnam advayam. So here there is a very beautiful explanation of how this happens. How come I lose my purnatva? How do I look at, so this was, I remember when I understood this from the teaching of Swami Akhandanandaji. It really made a big impression. It just made some things a lot simpler. So I'll give you a brief introduction to that. It's pretty profound, and so we will have to revisit it from time to time. So here's what it is. The nature of the self, nature of Paramatma, nature of Atma is that it is complete. Complete. Advayam. There is nothing different from it. As we will see more and more clearly, this is just the initial thesis. But just follow this thesis. So the Atma is Purnam, Advayam, complete. Complete meaning it is infinite. There's nothing other than, it's not large, it is infinite. There is nothing that's not included in it. This is what we have to see. So now here's what happens. The nature of the Atma is not only that I am Purna, complete, but also the nature is that I see things. I'm an observer, basically. We follow this logic closely. So I am Purna. And I don't know that I am Purna. This is the mistake. And while I don't know that I'm Purna, I'm also the Sakshi. Okay? So if I am the Sakshi as well as not knowing that I'm a Purna, I have to see something. Why? Because my nature is to see, to be aware, to observe. That's my nature. This is what everybody's nature. This is what the whole Atma is. Jnanam and Satyam. It's always seer. It's not occasional seeing. You see the beauty of Satyam Jnanam Anantam. From time to time we should keep that in mind. That I am a Jnanam. Jnanam means I'm an awareful being. And I am not an occasional awareful being. That is my nature, that I am always a awareful being. So I'm not just Jnanam, I'm Satyam and Jnanam. I'm Sat and Chit both. And do I see an end to it? Is that some sakshat experience that I can see? I can see the end of my awareness. I can see it. You have no proof. This is all just taken, that I am a limited being is just taken for granted without any proof. In fact, the proof is that I have no end. So Satyam Jnanam Anantam Satchidananda is my nature. And so going back to the thesis that I was developing, I am Purna, Ananta. Anantaha and Purna is the same thing. And I am Chit Swarupaha. I am by nature a seer. So now comes the logic which really floored me when I really looked at it, and was pointed out by Swami Akhandananda really, is that if I am Purna and I don't know it, which I don't, because I see things as they are and I take them for granted that the world is different from me. So I certainly don't know the Purnatvam of the Atma. But I am also a seer at all times. If you combine these two factors, you know what happens? You see things that are not you. You see that? See, this is the thing. If you are complete and you don't know it, but at the same time you cannot resist not seeing. You have to see. See means not by through the eyes, but to be aware, to observe. So you are a seer by nature. You are Purna by nature, but you don't know the Purna. The consequence of these two is that you develop a falseness about who you are. Beautiful. I can see that. So you cannot give up seeing. There's no way. That's our nature. Even now you're observing, you're listening, you're watching, seeing. What you're seeing, whether you're agreeing with it or not, that's a different matter, but you're a seer. If that is the case, and at the same time, you somehow fail to see that I am the Purna, that this is a mistake. Therefore, you start to develop an alternate world where you divide between you and the outside. This is the mistake of not understanding Purnatva. So it is very natural that we take our life to be what it is: fractured, incomplete, problematic. All of that is a natural consequence of this mistake. This is what Advaita Vedanta says, that you are Advayaha Ekam Dviti Advitiyam, and how that mistake has to be recognized is, of course, the teaching. So we have to go on with that. So anyway, but this is an introduction to the nature of the mistake that we have. And so here, what happens is that as a consequence of of this basic mistake, then you compound your errors. There's an original mistake, and then it gets worse. How does it get worse? By likes and dislikes, by playing favorites. And then the consequence is it takes you in a completely different direction, where you say, this is me, and this is mine. This is my child, this is my wife, my husband, my house, and everything else is different. And by the way, anybody that helps me with my security is my friend. Anybody that threatens is my enemy. And so I don't like these situations. The other situations I love. Compounding of things. All that. Swami Maheshanandi had given this very beautiful example. I've never forgotten that. So there was a military officer who's very well decorated. You know, all these military officers, they wear the badges on their shoulder. Oh my God, these shirts must be heavy. They got all these different accolades that have been given to them, and so on. There's a big one and a small one, and so on. And so he went to some kind of a gathering where they're giving him, honorary vice chancellor of such and such university, another one that they have to pin. So this young kid came up and said, "Sir, wow, I am impressed. How did you get all these medals? How did you even get them?" He says, "My son, can I tell you the secret? Don't tell it to anyone." He says, "The secret is, you see this big one right here, this big medal?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "That was the original one. And I really kind of deserved that to a certain extent. Then, once I got that medal, everybody else fell in line and said, 'Sir, can you please visit us? And we want to give you an honorary this, honorary that.'" And so pretty soon his whole chest was full of these medals. He says, that's what happened. It's the original one is the one that caused it. Everybody else kind of, got on the bandwagon, so to speak. It's really what happens to us. That I make a mistake that I am this body. And once I make that mistake, then the consequence of that mistake gets compounded, because then diseases come in. then death starts to approach. Today is really a sad day actually for us. There were five of us couples that have known each other for the last 50 years, and we have stayed in this area for all this time. And we are all now, with the exception of a couple of people, in our 80s. And so out of these 10 people, one person had died 6 years ago from cancer. The rest of the 9 people were there. One person died a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. Another person died this morning. So we are all mourning that. So out of 10, 3 are now gone. And so, we are coming to the end of the life phase where the body is now starting to say bye-bye. And so all these compounding things, diseases, old age, but even much more than that, it's interesting. This is why the Sukshma Sharira discussion, the Dvitiya Pada, the second step, is much, much more significant than the first step. So this body problems were on the first step, Sthula Sharira. But most of our problems, this is true that somebody died recently, just today. Somebody died this morning actually. She died at 8:40. I got the news at about 10, and I'm helping her husband to arrange for the funeral and all that. Very fresh, just today. All of that has to do with the body. But really speaking, that just happens at the very end. Maybe, for the last 6 months she was not well. But most of our problems is Sukshma Sharira. Much more important. And as we will see, this is going to be a very beautiful analysis on how that happens. Why do I take myself to be a victim of the samskaras? This is what it is. This is just basically based on my previous history and how it influences my thoughts, how I look at things in a very mistaken way. And it can be corrected. It does not do with anything with the body. Most of our issues are here, even when we are well. So fine, there's compared to an old lady who just died because she had some problems, severe lung problems. If there was a young person, they also have the same issues. I don't like it, and this restaurant was terrible, and my taxes have gone, all kinds of things, full of it. All of the consequences of not understanding that it doesn't really affect me. It shouldn't affect me, and it doesn't. But because of my mistake, I'm just taking the burden of the whole world onto myself. This is what is going to be taught. So here, I was going to hopefully even wind up number 4, but I don't think I will. So let's continue going. So this is a very important thesis as part of our understanding. that will we should keep in mind, which is that seeing things is not a problem. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, that my nature is that of seeing. Seeing is not a problem. Observing things is not a problem. But it is misinterpreting the appearances. That is the problem. There are many, many different ways to look at it. In fact, the whole discussion will really, in detail, this will come up. But just to give you a very quick issue. You see a person, everybody, let's say, sees the same person. So there's a woman standing, and she walks into the room. Everyone in the room that is already there, young and old, sees the same person. So it's not as though they have a completely different. The eyes simply say, "I see this human being," and in fact, it's very interesting. It is really interesting. We will see this in great detail. In fact, in the four Karikas, the last Karika is Alata Shanti Prakaranam. Alata Shanti Prakaranam. I should really bring that. Some of you already have it. This is the first one. And then the second one is Vaithatya Prakaranam. The third one is Advaya Prakaranam, I think it's called. Advaya Prakaranam. And the last one is Alata Shanti Prakaranam. So in the Alata Shanti Prakaranam, believe it or not, it has twice the number of verses as this Agama Prakaranam. Agama Prakaranam, I think, only has about, in fact, even 3 times. This only has the 12 of the Mandukya, and I think it has 19 or 29, I forget. So it's about 30 to 40 verses. The Alata Shanti has 100 verses, and guess what? It is half the size of this. Anyway, the nature of that is that it summarizes in a kind of like the final analysis of the summary of everything else. Very beautiful. And so I'm almost halfway through. I must have studied it 2 or 3 times, and I enjoy studying it every morning, underlining things and so on. So there the example was given. That a person walks in. So the Indriyas simply say this is a person. The mind is also an Indriya. It is a combined organ, sense organ. It has the task of accumulating the individual sense organs that look at different aspects of the world, and the mind consolidates that into a single Indriya. So, for example, the eyes will say this is an apple. And then the touch will say this is not a real apple. And then the smell will say, yes, that's true. This is just a stone apple. So the individual Indriyas assess what the object is, that the mind has to make a decision. that yes, this is a artificial fruit, not a real fruit. So the mind is also an indriya. But then what happens is, this is a very important thesis. We're going to build on this. What happens is, so the mind and the other sense organs simply provide you with the data. That's it. What makes you assess who that person is depends on your samskaras. And the samskaras, where are the samskaras? What do they, we're going to look into all this in great detail. Where does a samskara reside? What is the nature of it? What is the weight of the samskara? What is the shape of the samskaras? We'll look into all of that. But just to complete this story, what happens is that a lady walks in to a room and everyone has a different view of assessing her. In fact, if it is a baby, it doesn't know whether it's a woman or a man. Isn't it? So the baby has to be given a samskara over time, which would say if a person looks like this, it's a woman. And these days we have a lot of difficulty distinguishing between men and women anyway. Both their bodies, their clothing. But let's say, leave aside those kinds of strange things that are happening in this country. Just take the traditional view. Somebody walks in, even a baby doesn't know whether it's a man or a woman. Then, as the baby grows up, samskaras come into the mind. A lot of stored, samskara means stored data. Because the sense organ simply report the thing to you. But then, in the data, the mind brings that out and says, okay, who is she? Now you can assess as soon as the person becomes 3 or 4 year old, even less than that, I think, that you can tell this is a woman, this is a man. And then it becomes, she's friendly or not? Some people look upon her as their mother. Hi, Mom. How come you're late? We've been waiting for you. Other people say, oh, here comes this lady who thinks so highly of herself. She doesn't want to talk to me. So everybody has a different assessment. So this is what it is. We become a prisoner of our thoughts, our attitudes, our samskaras. It has nothing to do with reality. And we live in a world full of conclusions, assessments, likes, dislikes. It has nothing to do with reality. Because the reality is, in fact, that we are somebody that has all the 5 elements in them. They're a combination of, Akasha, Vayu, etc. And then there is some Sukshma Sharira that makes us kind of move. That's it. It's nothing but five elements. And that is nothing but a particular shape of the conscious entity. Like a wave of the ocean, it is really based out of Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Everything is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Even the expression is made out of Panchamahabhutas. So this is the reality. And as we have studied, and we will do this again, that is not the vastu, that is just a shape. So the samskaras that give rise to my thoughts, my assessments, is not a vastu. It is akara. It is a shape. Like an ornament is a shape. It is not a vastu. The vastu is the metal. So I am that vastu. And because of my assessment, I take myself to be not the vastu that I am. So just we can go back to the dream analogy, as we will do that in more detail later on. That is the Atma is the vastu. But as soon you go into the dream, you now have different forms. Aham, idam. And then you have likes, dislikes, friend, mother, neighbor, beautiful, not beautiful. All those kinds of things come up. But nothing but really is it's the basic Atma. And all due to samskaras. I build a storyline, becomes identified with the characters. So this is exactly what happens. So, so here's how we begin this analysis in more detail. Here's how we do this analysis in more detail. So the fact is that there is a picture in front of us. So like we were saying that a lady walks into the room and there are a number of other people who greet her and say, happy you came. Some people will say, unhappy, oh, there she comes again. And their children will say, Mom. So all these kinds of things are happening, okay? So there is a single, here you can say an object. Also, object is not a vastu. There's only one vastu, which is the Atma. But for the time being, we can say, from a vyavaharik standpoint, we can say there is a object, there is a vastu, which is a person. Now, what happens is that we do not see the vastu as it is, but we see it through the filter of our mind, which is distorted by the various vasanas and samskaras. Vasanas and samskaras is pretty much the same. as we have discussed it before. Vasana has a negative connotation. Samskara has a slightly positive, but they're pretty much the same. I kind of prefer to use the word samskaras based on what Swami Akhandananda has been using. So I have a set of filters that are based on samskaras. So my mind's camera is really looking at the image of the object through the lens of this filter. This is what it is. They're different, their ideas, different. So I don't see the reality as it is. I only see how the reality appears to me through my samskaras. This is the bottom line. Everybody does the same thing. So this is important. So this is what would be called the pragyaha, antaf pragyaha and bahish pragyaha. Antaf pragyaha and bahish pragyaha. So verse number 3 was bahish pragyaha. And verse number 4 is antaf pragyaha. So one is the waking state and the other one is a thoughtful state only. And so the difference is, see both the differences between them, also the similarity of them. Both are important. Okay? So let's look at the similarity first. So whether we are in the waking state or we are dreaming, doesn't matter. All that I am looking at is through the filter of my samskaras. Both ways. Both ways I'm looking at samskaras only. My camera, the thing does not touch the camera. It is the image of the thing that touches the camera film. See, that's the point. So I'm only looking at my samskaras only, not the vastu itself. So the only question is what kind of samskaras? So in the Jagrat Avastha, in the waking state, there are also samskaras. In the dream state also there are samskaras. In the dream state, so this is the similarity. Now let us look at dissimilarity. In the dream state, my samskaras are totally based on myself. There is no externality to the samskaras. And we will understand it better if we go to the waking state. In the waking state, the shrishti, the very creation that I see in front of me guides my samskaras. It doesn't completely determine the samskara, but it guides it. Guides it in the sense that if I'm looking at the sofa in front, I am only looking at the sofa. I'm not looking at the moon. And so, even though I'm looking at the sofa and I may have a subjective view of the sofa in front of me, then why is it dirty? How come it didn't get cleaned? But at least the image of the sofa, which determines my samskara, comes from outside. In the dream, that is not the case. It doesn't come from outside. I create it on my own. So that is the dissimilarity. One case, the object outside has a great influence on my samskaras. In the other case, I don't depend on any outside objects. I create my own objects. But in both cases, what I'm assessing is what is visible to me, and I'm interpreting it. And as we saw in the last class, which is also going to be taken up in the future, is that in the dream state, my experiences are based on, my samskaras are based on the waking state. Everything should be familiar to me. And I think we discussed that in the last class also, that you cannot imagine things on your own. Everything has based on samskaras. And so there was a question that how come there's sometimes strange people I'm looking at. It has two reasons why strange people can be looked at in your dream. One is they may be from your previous life, or they are a combination of different people from this life. That can be done because my mind is very fertile. I can just imagine things anyway. But in any case, I don't see anything which is not already as part of my samskaras. That's the thesis in the dream. Now the question is then, is the waking state fundamentally different from the dream? No, it is not. How do you say that? Except for the fact that the external objects have a major influence on my samskaras, I'm only seeing my samskaras. You're only seeing your samskaras. Where did they come up? You said that it is only only known things create samskaras. Known experiences create samskaras. Yes, absolutely. This is where the word vasana would come in. The only reason that you have, supposing you cut a lot of onions or garlic, then you wash your hands, you've already cooked the garlic and onions and so on, they're all gone, invisible. But some wake of those smells remain. So the onions and garlic are still around because of the samskaras. So the point is that you cannot have a smell of onion unless there was some onion. So similarly, you cannot have samskaras unless you had some experience. So the question is, where was this experience? Where did it come from? It comes from an accumulation of all previous lives, plus your experiences of this life, superimposed on top of that. So that's why you can you see something similar, but your reactions are based on samskaras. Just yesterday, my son brought his two young kids to meet with us, and they picked it up from school, and they both came, and so they were coming on the freeway from Berlin, from the airport, and having dinner with us, my wife and I, and that takes like about 20 minutes or so, maybe 25 minutes to go from the airport to our house. And my son calls me and he says, "Oh my God, there is an accident on 280, and it's a bad one because nothing is moving at all." And he looked at his map, and instead of 20 minutes, it said 45 minutes. So he said, well, one of the kids, the smaller one, younger one, is already asleep, but the other one is awake. Sanya, who's just turned 3 a couple of days ago, she was awake. So I said, how are you going to entertain her? Because, it's all stop and go traffic. And kids can get very, um, um, very, very tired and cranky. But amazingly enough, Sanya did not get upset. She just observed the scene, and there was some song coming. She just was listening to it. So when they got home, I asked Manoj, I said, Manoj, how was Sanya doing? He said, Dad, I was so amazed. She just sat there, not complaining, not once saying, when are we going to go home? When are we going to go home? Old samskaras. I wasn't like that. Honestly, some she's picked up something in the previous life. It doesn't bother her if there is a traffic jam. It's okay. Amazing. So our Jagrat Avastha is based on a lot of previous experiences. It's not just suddenly that came up. It is the continuity of life. Anyway, I think we will wrap up this part of it. You know, I'm very tempted to tell you a very. I think what I'll do is I'll end with that story. Not story, but a way of looking at things. And then I think I have a few more things I want to talk about on the fourth verse. So I'll postpone that, but I have to tell you this. I've been waiting to tell you this. In one of the books that Swami Akhandananda, it was called Drikdrishya Viveka. So before going to sleep, I just take up a different book, and I was reading Drikdrishya Viveka, and it's remarkable how the same ideas percolate into something more simpler. Drikdrishya Viveka is a very simpler book than the Mandukya, but yet the depth of the ideas was very visible to me. He came up with this one illustration which blew my mind, honestly. He said the following. He said, look at the rays of the sun, the light of the sun. The light of the sun falls on things without a filter, without a samskara. Just the way things are, it simply lights it up. It is also a lighter. It is the source of light, source of heat, light, and so on. So this is one thing. He said, look at the projection of a film on a screen. The difference between the light projection through the screen and the light projection to the sun, look at the differences between them. In the light of the sun, there is no story that it is going through. But in the case of the film, there is in fact a samskara based on the film story itself. A man and a woman and a mother and father and children, these are stories. And when you throw the light through a film, you get a completely different picture on the screen than you see on from the sun, because it doesn't go through this film. So here, what you see, the same similar light to the sun. Similar light to the sun, maybe not as powerful, but it is steady. It is just a powerful lamp that projects through the film. But what comes out is a lot of movement, a lot of assessment of good or bad, fear. He says, do you know something? Now comes the conclusion. You are like the light going through your own samskaras. Do you not see, he says, that you have a steady light? I know. Chit Swarupavam. I know. But what comes out is through your own mind and your own samskaras. And it becomes a story. There is a conclusion, there is an assessment, there is relationships, there is vyavahara. My goodness, when I saw that, I said, whoa, wow, that is exactly what is happening. And then, as we will see, we get bamboozled by what we see. This is my own light, but I'm oblivious of it. And all I see is I get taken up by the story that I'm projecting. This is the Ekajiva Vada. Anyway, I have to give you that illustration. We will take that up, and it's different, but just think about it. Beautiful. Very revealing, very profound. Anyway, so this is the Dvitiya Padaha, an understanding of how the Sukshma Sharira, how the Taijasa becomes Hiranyagarbha. All of that is all part of the projection of the mind, and we have to understand it. That is a mistake, and until we do, we make a mistake of idam, aham, difference, etc., and get into a lot of problems. There's no need to. We need to correct it, and then we will get Swarajya. Anyway, with that, I close the class. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Good, good. Happy to see you all. All right. Don't see any questions per se. So we'll close the class and hopefully we'll see you on Saturday. Hari Om.